We have seen what VPC endpoints are on a higher level. We'll see a demo here how to use VPC endpoints to connect to S3 service from EC2 instances in private subnets. But before that, let me tell you the conceptual idea. You can connect to S3 from EC2 instances which are sitting in private subnets so that traffic from EC2 instance to S3 would never have to leave Amazon's network. We have AZ, VPC, public and private subnets. EC2 instances are running in both the subnets and we want to connect to S3 from these EC2 instances. Instances from the public subnet can access S3 using Internet Gateway and VPC, but traffic would travel via Internet to go to S3. Instances in private subnets can use NAT Gateway to connect to S3. It would also use Internet to connect to S3. If you use a VPC endpoint instead, all EC2 instances would be able to communicate with S3 via this VPC endpoint, and none of the traffic would have to use Internet for the same. Let's see how VPC endpoints are created for S3 and access our S3 bucket from an EC2 instance in the private subnet. In our VPC, I want private 1A1 subnet or EC2 instances in this subnet to be able to talk to S3 endpoints or S3 buckets. The route table associated with this subnet is this one, or private route table. To create an endpoint, go to endpoints and then click on create endpoint. I'll select the S3 service, it will be a gateway endpoint, and then select the VPC. I'll select our own VPC. It is saying that you have to configure route tables, a rule with destination this prefix list, and a target with endpoint ID VPC this will be added to the route tables we select. So this is the route table for my subnet which I have just selected. It has private 1A1 subnet associated with it, and then I'll give full access and then click on create endpoint. The endpoint has been created. This is the name of the endpoint, or this is the endpoint ID. So it is type gateway, and route tables 7586 is the route table. I have launched two EC2 instances. The first one is in a private subnet and the second one is the bastion host. Let me go ahead and try to access the S3 bucket from this instance which is in the private subnet. Let me log into the bastion host first. I am in the bastion host now and I have copied the private key pair. I am inside of the EC2 instance which is running in the private subnet. I'll use AWS CLI to access S3 buckets. Before accessing CLI, you'll have to do some setup. Do not try this yourself because I have not shown you the setup yet. I just want to show you how VPC endpoint works, that's it. If I type this command S3 API list buckets, it is showing me all the buckets which are available. I'm using this AWS S3 API list objects command in the bucket deep AWS foundation to check all the objects there. I should not be able to do it with the other bucket, deep AWS foundation bucket, because this bucket is in Ohio region and I have not created any VPC endpoint from my private subnet to the bucket in Ohio region or from my private subnet to Ohio region. So it is not working as usual. This is how VPC endpoint helps from private subnet without using internet. Without using any internet gateway, any NAT gateway, I'm able to access S3 by using VPC endpoint.